Zoom here.
All right, so we're going to get started on our Play to Learn webinar today with Keren Allen. And I mean, there's not much to say. I mean, she's going to take over and give her little bio, and I think we're all very interested to hear what she has to say. I know I am. All right, so I mean, without further ado.
Okay. Hi. Yes, I'm Keren. I am a LVT, and I am an instructor at Baker College. I teach on the Muskegon campus. If you don't know about Baker College, we do have different campuses around the state. So I'm kind of on the western side and teach there. So I've been at LVT about 15 years. I originally went to school for teaching. Kind of got sidetracked a little bit with some retail management, that type of stuff, and then went back to school to become an LVT, and then kind of combined the 2 degrees, and so now I'm teaching. So I got the best of both worlds, and I feel like I have the greatest job in the world. So I love what I do, and hopefully my goal is to get the students excited and engaged enough about it that they're equally as excited and engaged in that type of stuff. So Jessica's going to monitor the Facebook little posts and chat and stuff like that, just because I'm not all that technically advanced, and I, for some reason, could not find it. So she's going to monitor that. So if you have comments or suggestions or ideas, I think a lot of these ideas that I'm going to show you today that I've used in the classroom, I've done pre-COVID. So in small groups. So some of them, I think that going forward and even in this fall, we're going to have to try to think of creative ways to still do a lot of this stuff, but do it in smaller groups where we don't have the, close contact and that type of stuff, and we're still social distancing. So that'll be a little bit of a new take on it, or a new challenge, I guess, that we do have going forward. So, but I think it's definitely still doable. So I do actually, I'm going to do a little share screen, and I actually kind of have a presentation that I was actually going to present it at our Baker faculty conference, and then that was canceled. So I'm going to switch over to share screen because I do have pictures up. So hopefully you can see that. So I kind of titled it Learn to Play and Play to Learn. So the Learn to Play maybe was kind of for me as an instructor. I sort of always felt like if I'm not lecturing them or just like directly talking to them, then they're probably not learning the material. There's so much material here that they're just not going to learn it all. So I teach anatomy and physiology to students prior to them getting into our program. And then I also teach fundamentals of vet tech, or kind of an intro to vet tech. And then I teach radiology. So those are my main classes that I teach. And then I'm kind of just do lab assistant for surgery, nursing, advanced surgery, diagnostics, and everything else that I don't teach. I kind of do the lab assistant. And then my colleague and the program director, we kind of flip-flop all of those things. So my colleague will be my lab assistant, and vice versa and things. So so those are the two, I guess, kind of main classes that I've done a lot of this stuff in is anatomy and physiology. So generally that is a larger class, and it's a lot of material. And I always sort of felt like if I do something that deviates from me just like trying to cram all this information in their head, they're not going to learn it. They're not going to remember their anatomy when they get to radiology or, get into fundamentals. And I had to kind of change my thinking and realize that that's not necessarily true. They are still going to learn it. I just need to learn how to play. So meaning activities, and then they can actually do those activities or that play to then learn. And sorry for my dog in the background there. She kind of has a big bark. So when I started kind of looking up about student engagement and that kind of stuff, I sort of realized that you can be super smart and be the most brilliant person, but if the students aren't interested or they're bored, they're not really learning anything anyways. I'm not making any difference on them there. And I'll show you some comments that I would get where it's like, she seems really smart, but it was boring or blah, blah, blah. So a couple of just definitions of student engagement. To me, what student engagement is getting them excited about what they're learning about. So when I first get the students in anatomy and physiology, I'll generally have anywhere from 60 to sometimes we've had 80. So I do have larger classes, all of whom are not going to make it into our program. We do have a limited enrollment program. But my goal is to get them excited about their learning. So that's how I like to try to, what to me, I guess engagement means is they still want to learn, they want to continue to learn as they go along. So just a couple other little definitions on what the engagement is. It's not just them answering a question in the classroom to me, you know, or Googling something and finding the answer. It's Googling something because they want to know the answer. They're more curious about it. That's what I want them to get to that point. And so sometimes I'm okay with them Googling something in my classroom because they're wanting to know more about it. So oftentimes if they ask me a question and I don't know the answer, I'll say, you know what, just Google it. I'm a Googler. So, and then total maybe off topic from anatomy and physiology, but then we will talk about it and I'll have them Google it because I'm just excited that they want to learn more about it, that they've asked a question about it and they're excited to find out more information about it. And looking it up on the internet is just a plethora of knowledge for them. And if they're excited to learn more about it, then I say go for it. And then I like the Benjamin Franklin where it's like, if you just tell me something, I'll forget it. If you teach me, I remember, but if you're actually like involving me in doing something, I will learn. And so over the years of teaching anatomy and physiology, that's probably the class that I've taught the most. And I taught on the Jackson campus for a little bit. So I would teach it in the fall and then again in the spring. I just came to realize that me standing up there lecturing is not getting the point across. It's not getting them excited about their learning and memorizing it and things. So this is a little bit embarrassing, but these are actually like some of the evaluation comments that I got on, you know, that end of year evaluation where you're like, fill it out, let us know how we did. In 2015, 2016, I wish there was more group activities or projects. It was a comment, only lectured. So much information in this course. I don't think it's possible that doing group work, but it actually really is. But they even said the information would sink in better instead of always having lecture. Kahoots are very helpful. So that was in 2015, 2016, and then 2018, same class. I got comments like, I loved this class. It was fun and interesting at the same time. This class was very engaging, made it more fun. I wanted to learn about the subject. This class was a joy for me, exactly what I needed. So it kind of, I can't argue the fact that the activity and combined with lecture is really what got the students engaged in changing their minds. So playing Bone Pictionary, doing Kahoots, having them do Kahoots, doing Kahoot Challenge, just all sorts of different things. My colleague at the Jackson campus actually had suggested that we do a Kahoot challenge between the 3 campuses that have vet tech through Baker. And so that was something that we did, little friendly competition between the students. So anything like that to get them engaged is a good idea and is fun. So what I have is just pictures of kind of some of the stuff that I've done, and then hopefully it gives you guys ideas. And if you have different ideas for different classes, please post them for everybody. Like if you're like, hey, I could do this in pharmacology, that's not a class I teach, or pathology, certainly go ahead. So I have Jenga games. I first of all, I should tell you that I am kind of I don't consider myself cheap, but I'm frugal. So one of my sisters actually donated a couple Jenga games to me. I got another one on Facebook Marketplace for like $5. Did a little porch pickup. So there's totally different options. And then the flashcards that you see there are just ones that I made. And one of the students on campus actually helped cut them out and laminate them, so that it's really just a flashcard of different definitions, different terms, anything anatomy and physiology. And then I took different things that we have. These are actually flashcards. Some of you might recognize them that are from, I believe they're from Elsevier. And I highlighted here, and then on the answer is the back. And just kind of made up a game. If you get it right, you get a red chip, and you want to have more red chips. Let me shoot to a different screen here. These are games that I bought at the dollar store for $1. And so just checker and chess boards, and then took different game pieces from different games. Again, you might recognize these flashcards here from Evolve and Elsevier. Those are just different flashcards with the words division. And then I just made up some rules for them, kind of one of them's kind of like chutes and ladders. But it's really just the students engaging with each other. We went down to our student center, and then just I have 6 or 7 different games, and they each sort of have a different theme. Some of them, they have to make animal noises if they get it wrong and that type of stuff. But the thing that I like about this is the students are engaging. This past semester when I did it, the student life director brought down some coffee for the students because I have a morning class, some granola bars. I brought them some candy and snacks. And they get to interact with each other. But one of the things I like about it is they don't just give the answer away. So I sort of divide them up based on ones that are quiet and ones that are more chatty, ones that are doing well in the class, ones that aren't doing well. And then utilizing the flashcards, they help each other out. They give each other hints. They say, here's how I remember it. This is a good way that I learned that. And so it's a lot of engaging with each other and then engaging with their learning. And then I just kind of mosey around and help them or give them a little hint here and there once if they're stuck on something. It kind of keeps them on track. I do catch them getting a little chatty sometimes, but this is one activity that does take up the entire class period. Some of the activities will take up maybe 40 minutes, of an hour and 50 minutes. Some of them, it depends on what I'm wanting to do with the situation. This is really just an example of review. You can choose to make it the entire class period if you want, or just make it 15, 20 minutes of your class period. I try to do lecture one day, lecture/review, and then an activity on the other day on a twice a day class. So here again, just another, cyanosis, and then obviously the answers on the back, but just different things. And so this is like super easy to make, super cheap. Get the stuff at the dollar store. I made, the flashcards again. The school helped out with that with a student who was working in the library, so they helped there is, and I think I have a link to it coming up later on, there's actually a flashcard maker online where you can actually just make your flashcards and then print them off, laminate them, and it's, again, super cheap. So the other thing, I guess, I like to bake, so just being creative. This is, hopefully you can tell it's a cell. So I utilize this one for review. Sometimes I will utilize an activity for actual teaching, and then other times I'll use my activity for review to see if they actually learned what I wanted them to learn. So a lot of times with this, what I'll do is, you know, have a cookie or cell cookie, and then we'll just kind of gather around and point to the different things, like, you know, the mitochondria, nucleus, and then talk about the different things that it does, the lysosomes and the ribosomes and that type of stuff. So I'll kind of let them know, you know, like, hey, this is a Golgi body and this is ER and that type of stuff. And then we'll talk about what does it do, and then they can enjoy a little snack afterwards. So we'll kind of go over all of that stuff. So just kind of being creative. This is a little DNA in there, but I think creativity gets them excited about it, gets them up out of their seat, gets them chatting, gets them a little bit more involved. So if you're not into baking, that's okay. This kind of says think of things that you can bake for that, but this is actually a skin cake that I made for them. So we would go around and talk about hot spots. This is kind of proud flesh, hives, and then this one, again, I use for review, so we can talk about what's the word for hives. We can talk about the different things here, hair follicles, you know, these little yellow is fat, so we can talk about the different layers. I used a Rice Krispie treat that was, you know, pre-made that I bought, so that's kind of the hypodermis, and then when you cut into the cake, there was like a dermis layer and an epidermis. So you can kind of, you can draw this stuff or put it on there with a piece of paper and then just pick off the piece of paper if you want to. This is something that it did take me a while to do, so time-wise, you do have to have the time, and then obviously the enjoyment. Not everybody gets into making weird things like this, but we were able to talk about hot spots and then alopecia, you know, using some of the different words, some different mites, space scar, that type of stuff. So lots of different ideas. I guess just the thing is just be creative. Like, this is something I have been doing for quite a few years now, is name that blood cell. I think the one on the right, it was the very first one I ever did, where I got this wild idea to paint blood cells on there with food coloring. I would not recommend that. It took me hours and they did not look that great anyways. So now what I do is I just print it off on the computer, tape it onto a little toothpick, and then stick it in either a brownie. I've had years where I didn't have time to bake anything, so I just bought some cookies at the grocery store and stuck it in a cookie. Part of the reason I do this is the right stain, so the coloring when they're staining their blood cells. So I usually do the frosting in the different colors for the stain. And then, so we'll talk about that. And then this one, I have the students come up and I will give them different clues. So I will say, pick out the blood cell that does the most phagocytosis. And then they have to choose that. Pick out the one that does no phagocytosis for the next person. You know, and on. So it's a review / kind of learning. They're learning about the blood cells. And in anatomy and physiology, they're just kind of learning the basics. So I don't get too in depth. Sometimes I just say, pick out the eosinophil, or pick out the lymphocyte, so I can kind of go from there, or the platelet, that type of stuff. And then I'll either give them a clue or just have them pick the blood cell. usually I let them phone a friend, which is, you know, you can turn around and ask the person behind you for help. And then depending on how many students I have, I will sometimes start to run out of clues. And so I will have someone who's already gone maybe think of a clue. So I will call in the other students to say, hey, why don't you give them a clue? And so then that kind of re-engages them, helps them to continue to pay attention, and helps them think of something themselves that they have to offer. So this is probably the one that I get in the hallway most of all, is like, oh yeah, you're the Bledsoe cupcake lady. And they do seem to remember it. My husband makes really good brownies, and so the last couple of semesters I've kind of conned him into helping me and make brownies. So it really doesn't, you know, it can be anything. And then you could do this with parasites, put the parasites on there, and then they have to recognize those. Different characteristics. I mean, type something in if you can think of any other areas where you could do this, because it's kind of fun. They enjoy the little snack. They enjoy getting up out of their seat, and they're learning something in the process. And then most of the time I'll have students that ask me if they can take one of each of the toothpicks with the picture on it, and then they'll use it for studying. They'll, you know, they maybe write the answer on the back and then almost like use it for a flashcard with their classmates and stuff. So they do kind of become a little flashcard for them, which I'm totally happy with. Like, go for it. But I think there's lots of different areas that this could be utilized. Can I get a quick drink here? Sorry. In different classrooms and things. So that's always a fun one. This is, it's an anal gland, but again, just like try to think outside the box. This was, again, an idea that someone shared with me that they had seen. And so I kind of took it and ran with it. Inside the toilet paper roll is a smaller balloon, and it's just really, it's filled with lotion. Some of the lotion has food coloring in it. And then I will have them feel, so they can feel the lymph node, or the anal gland. And then I will go and, after they've all kind of felt it, see what it feels like, I'll go and poke it with a needle or something like that, and then they can kind of practice expressing it. And they really just get the lotion on their hands. If there's food coloring in it, which it's random, then I like, you know, them to come up and acknowledge, hey, I have something red in mine, I have blood in there, because that's what we want them to do for the doctor. So, but again, it's just about kind of thinking outside the box and trying to be a little bit creative with these things. This is the back end of a stuffed animal, and we just sort of stuck it in there. And then generally to make them wear gloves. This is my coworker helping me out here. But it actually, the balloon acts, it doesn't have that tone, but it does act very similar to an anus, and seems to work really well. And the students actually love it. I actually had a couple of them this past semester that got so excited. They were like, I want to take this home to my mom and show my mom what we did. So that was a great idea that I got from another colleague. Again, I love Google. Just asking them, you know, what's wrong with my animal? This past semester, I have some friends that have dogs, and they had symptoms of, one of them has diabetes, one of them has Cushing's, one had hypothyroidism. And so I introduced them to my friend's dogs, and I said, here's the symptoms, figure out what's wrong with them, because that's what their clients do. And so I like to use the internet and Google to try to teach them, look at it from your client's point of view. If you tell them, or the doctor does, your dog now has diabetes, and then the technician goes in there and, you know, talks to them again about it, probably 95% of the time they're going to go home and Google canine diabetes, and all this whole list of stuff is going to come up. And so I actually have my students do that in class. And then we can kind of talk about it. So any sort of dilemma, even this COVID dilemma of, You know, I just got a new dog that I did not know. She's 3 years old. She's a big overweight Doberman. And she had to go to the vet twice by herself for the first time. I had to wait in the car, and she could see me at one point out the window. She didn't want to get on the scale, and she was just nervous. And I, as a technician, know, you know, what's going on. And I was like, nervous mama, did not like that. So how, just different scenarios like that of how can you help your client? How can you help your patients? So I like to use the internet just to maybe come up with a scenario and then help them find solutions for it. I use this quite a bit with like the endocrine system. Those are some common things that they're going to see. Hypo and hyperthyroidism, pretty common. Cushing's. So finding information out about that, and then maybe where to find the information. Teach, like, just try to start teaching them good resources to use and good places to look on the internet, as opposed to just looking at the first thing that you see. So that's something I like to use. The puzzle here is a puzzle that I had made, and again, not student affairs. Ooh, let's see. Anyways, one of the guys on campus that does student relations actually printed these for me on a 2-foot printer. And so I have a dog, I have a horse, a few cats, few dogs actually, printed out a few. And then I just cut them up, laminated them. So super cheap. The college actually laminated them for me. And then they can write on them with dry erase markers. So we use this quite a bit to learn the bones. But these are super easy to make. You just find one on there and then cut it out. And then when I have the students doing, usually in groups of 2 or 3, they can put the puzzle together and then label all the bones, and then I'll have them shift. So if you got a dog, then you can have a cat, and then you can shift on and do the horse with all the bones, and then just label all the different bones. So it's a fun way to help them, you know, hopefully learn the bones. I have let a couple of students take them home with them to practice over the weekend, but those are different things. And then past the puzzle, I will make crossword puzzles with clues and stuff. And so this one I would generally do for review. So I'll make maybe 4 or 5 different crossword puzzles, and then split them up into groups. Each group can work on their crossword puzzle for about 5-10 minutes. And then when the timer goes off, just leave your puzzle where you're at and like shift it onto the next group. This is something that with the COVID and the changes and stuff like that, like we may not be able to shift it off to the next person, but we maybe make a crossword puzzle for each one of them, or put one online for them, that type of stuff. So, so generally every 5 minutes or so, we'll pass the puzzle and they'll finish up, you know, what the next person did. And then again, most of the time, you know, a couple of students will say, do you want these? Or, you know, you're going to grade them? I'm like, no, I'm not going to grade them. But most of the time, they'll just take them home and finish them and use them for a study guide, that type of thing. So, again, super cheap. I try to be frugal, but I also try to not use a whole lot of paper. But at some point, you know, we have to. I have done word search before. And really the big reason on that is spelling. So I'll encourage the students to, so if I provide them with one, I will encourage them to check the spelling, and then also like write out the definition after you're done. So as you're scrolling through and trying to find this word, make sure you know what it means. If you're looking for icterus in there, then you should probably also know what that means. So those are just different ways that I kind of encourage them to learn it with something simple that they're enjoying and kind of having fun with. Here's the little horse puzzle. And again, then just provide them a dry erase marker, and they can label each part of it, that type of stuff. So some of the other things that are out there, which a lot of you guys and we're already using, and I think even more so now with teaching online. I'm a big Kahoot person. I have a colleague that uses Nearpod and she loves it. I did not have this much success with it in my classrooms. Flipgrid, if you don't know what that is, it's actually like they shoot up a little video or a little picture of themselves. Some of my students weren't all that excited about it, so they weren't as comfortable with it, but that's another one. Quizlet, you can create a Quizlet classroom. The cool thing about a lot of these is during the COVID, and hopefully it will continue a little bit longer, they've offered, you know, like Kahoot Premium for free. Cram is another one, just kind of upgrades for free and things like that. The students love these, and we have to meet them where they're at. I know I have a teaching degree, but it's in elementary education, and sometimes I feel like I incorporate some of that in there, but we really just have to meet them and kind of manage what they like. So I sort of use Kahoot a lot, but I kind of try to manage it where it's like, okay, this one you're actually being held accountable and going to get points for. This is the actual quiz. You know, you can set up a timer on it, or you can leave it untimed. So there's tons of cool premium features in there, but they're playing a game on their phone and they're learning at the same time. And so hopefully a lot of these things get them really continue to get engaged in their learning. So this is one of my favorites. This one takes a little bit more work, but I will basically split them up into smaller groups, work better. I've done this in anatomy and physiology where I had a full class of maybe 40 students. So the smaller the group, the better it works. And I say smaller, like 2 to 3 students. And then I really just decide, do I want to do this for a review? Do I want to do this as the exercise where it's like, okay, I'm not going to lecture on the cardiovascular system. You're going to answer all of these clue questions and kind of learn it. And then I will review it the next day or the next class time. So it does, again, take a little bit more work to come up with the clues. But depending on what it is, like I've used it in fundamentals, and I'll make a clue that's figure out, you know, how many kilograms this animal is. And then that's step 1, and then take that, figure out how much carprofen that you would be sending home, you know, with this animal. And then what I have them do is come up, give me the answer to that one. If they get it right, I'll give them the next clue. So I put them all in envelopes, and then I just pull out the next clue as they go along. So generally this will take the whole class period. I have a lock that I, again, bought at the dollar store. We had a toolbox at school that I use, and then I just put stuff in it. And I say stuff, sometimes it's candy, sometimes it's apples, ramen noodles, cup of soup from the dollar store, or we have a few, we actually have a discount grocery around that has cheap stuff, or we have a store that sells open packages from like Costco. So they're still individually packaged, but that box got open. And so, you know, I can get a ramen noodle for 10 cents, and I will put that kind of stuff in there. And they really get excited about it. It's kind of first come, first serve. So whoever gets through their clues first gets to open the box first, gets first picks on the treats. Sometimes I've just put swag in there from our campus, you know, hand sanitizer, you know, pens, swag from vets, reps that come along and, you know, give us all our free stuff. So you can kind of put whatever you want in there, but then you really can just utilize this with, if you want to teach with it and then review later, or if you want to use it for review I've used it either way, and it's probably one of the things that the students seem to have the most fun with. And then I, again, just cruise around the classroom, helping them out if they need it, giving them a little clue here and there. But they really do race to see who can get done first and get the box open first. So it's kind of a take on the escape room, so you could try that. Excuse me, gonna get a drink here. So I put, what are some things that you could use scratch offs for in your classroom? I've only done this once, and it was actually just this past semester, right before we got shut down for COVID. And I actually had the program director as a guest speaker. She's a huge behaviorist, so she talked about behavior. And so myself and the other technicians we just walked around the classroom, and if someone was doing what we thought they should be doing, they got a scratch off. And if they were what we would consider maybe being naughty and dog or cat or training behavior, we took it away from them. So I utilized it to talk about like positive, negative reinforcement and training aspect and that type of stuff. The students had no clue what we were doing. But after the lecture was done on behavior, we were able to then go and talk about you were doing what you were supposed to be doing, so we positive reinforced you by giving you one of these. You were doing something that we felt like you shouldn't have been doing, so we took your little treat away. So negative reinforcement. So I used it in that aspect, but I think there's a lot of other aspects that you really could use this. And again, this was like super simple to make. I made this design on the computer, printed it off, and then you put either contact paper or I used packaging tape over the top of it, and then it's some acrylic paint that I had in the basement and some Dawn dish soap. Paint that on there, and then they can scratch it off. So it was super easy to make. They had a ton of fun with it. They all just kind of wanted to get a scratch off ticket, and then after talking about it, they were like, oh yeah, and it kind of helped just solidify that training aspect that we use. But I'm sure there's other areas that we can utilize this, and I'll think of something. I don't have any on the top of my head, so if anybody does, please feel free to type them in there. But that was a super easy one to make, and like pretty cheap. Candy pharmacy, is another one that I've done before. And basically I just put the different types of candy into, you can use a bottle. I don't have any pictures of mine, but, or little baggies, and then it's cephalexin 500 milligrams, cephalexin 250. It gave the students a way to visualize the math that they were figuring out, and then realizing that, okay, I'm not going to send home 4 250 milligram cephalexins when I can send home 2 500s. Sometimes our students are so visual that they can't see that unless they're actually doing it. So the candy was kind of a good way to get them to do it. I also did liquid, and I had chocolate milk. So I would have them figure out, some Pyrantel for a horse or something like that, just so they got a little bit more they could actually drink. But it kind of gives them a visual of, if I'm calculating something and I figure it out, no, I'm not going to give 10 mLs of this liquid to this little tiny kitten. Like, it logically, they can see that, where sometimes they can't see it if it's just written down on a piece of paper. So I do a kind of basic, again, you could do more advanced for pharmacology, but I teach them, in fundamentals, just sort of the basic math of, here's your formula. So pretty easy stuff, when they're first learning it, but you could totally, make this more advanced. I think I had maybe like 10 different kinds of candy, different milligrams. I mean, you could just do it with M&Ms if you wanted. It also helped them visualize. So if it was something they couldn't cut, I would choose a candy that really didn't cut or break very well. So it kind of helped them to realize, you know, not everything can be cut into a third and be given to your patient and things. So it was just a nice visual for them to look on. So I've also done the scavenger hunt. So this is something I'm incorporating this a little bit this summer. I'm teaching radiology, so I'm kind of having them do a little bit of a scavenger hunt around their house with safety equipment, and then showing me the safety equipment that they found around their house for radiology. So I'm going to try that this summer. And then a scavenger hunt where they're going to take a picture with their phone and turn that in. So I'd like, for this summer, I've asked them to take a picture of something that will show up as bright white on an x-ray, maybe something out in the yard that the dog will eat. So we're going to try that. So I'll let you guys know how that goes later on, but I have had them do a lab scavenger hunt. I also had them figure out how much stuff costs. And this, again, wasn't necessarily my idea. I got the idea from the program director at Cadillac, and then I incorporated it. So I'm sharing it here, but some other ideas that I listed there where you can have it. We use Canvas as our learning management software. You could have them hunt through and make sure they can find where to contact you, your office hours, you know, where everything is located, the link. We have a link in Canvas to the library. So those are all different things in your learning management that you can have them find maybe on the first day. If they're new or you teach, you know, a new class. Information on the internet or lab safety. So any of those things, I think, even just a gratitude scavenger hunt, you know, with all the stuff that's going on today, I don't think that's a bad idea to send them that as a stress reliever. So lots of different options there. And then just like all the different fun games that are out there. I know there's a Jeopardy classroom, there's a feature for that. I've played Bone Pictionary. The students have thoroughly enjoyed that. It helps the one that's drawing learn, and then helps the ones that are guessing kind of learn the bones. You could do password with it's an old game, but with the drugs. So maybe the drug is propofol, and then start listing clues about it. It's white, it's anesthetic, it goes IV, until they can guess what, you know, the drug is, propofol. So lots of different options that are out there, I think, that just make it a little bit more engaging and a little bit more fun, but they're learning at the same time. The trick is we don't want them to know that totally they're learning. And then kind of one of the other things, that stress is a huge thing. So I actually have kind of a de-stress area that I created this semester where they, yes, those are toilet paper rolls. Everybody should have a lot of those. So they've made enrichment things for the cats at the shelter. We actually use shelter animals for our surgery patients. And so this is one of our little surgery patients playing with it. But I have a dog breed puzzle that I have in there to help them learn the dog breeds, and then just to de-stress. And I've sat down with them and worked on the puzzle with them after class sometimes, just chatting. It's amazing what you can find out. It's amazing how you can like encourage them just by sitting down sometimes and working on a puzzle with them. So just help with the stress and that kind of stuff. So so those are a lot of ideas that I've had. I know that I love this Facebook group because everybody does share a lot of their ideas and things like that. And I think Jessica can probably, so let me stop sharing here, see if there's comments and things like that. And I can check the chat box here, but I think that with all of us combined, there's just really a lot that we can do. I think things are different now with COVID. So we do have, again, that social distancing. I know on our campus, we are allowed to go back on campus for labs starting this summer. And then we'll see going forward in the fall. So things are going to be quite a bit different, but I still think a lot of these things are possible. We just have to adapt and figure out a different way to do it. And so I'm having the students kind of use their phone, doing group projects online, but using their phone and sending me pictures. Google has, you guys can see, I'm not hugely adept at the internet and all of that kind of stuff, but I did actually create in Google, they have a spot in there where you can create a Google website. So my class, the class of 2021, we have a little website page that we created, and then it was kind of like, what are you doing during quarantine? And then each student can put a page, as a spot to put a page about themselves, put pictures of their pets. I've got a link to NAFTA on the SCNAFTA page. It links up and actually goes to our homepage for our campus. So lots of just different ideas and ways to get them engaged. So I think we just have to get a little bit more creative right now with COVID, and because it can be a little bit of a challenge. So that's about all I have. The only other thing I just want to, and this probably because it's one of my pet peeves, is learn the students' names. One of the things that I've I guess come to think about, like, my name is Keren, and I get called Keren a lot, but I can honestly tell you that I don't engage with a ton of people who still call me Keren all the time. Even after, I've known them for a while and that type of stuff, or I'll tell them it's Keren, it rhymes with urine. So I don't think that we can really expect our students to become engaged with us or engaged in their learning or engaged in the classroom if we don't learn their names. And this is probably more so going out to those of us that teach the first years, or even, before they're in the program or that type of stuff. So just learning their names is a big thing. I always tell my students that if I expect you to learn all the bones, I will learn all your names. It's not going to happen overnight. I got all semester, same way as you have pretty much most of the semester to learn the bones. I will learn your names. And I find that they become more engaged. And if they're not engaged, I can call on them by name when they're not paying attention or when I don't feel like they're engaged the way that they should be. So that's kind of all I have, unless you guys have any questions or comments. I don't know if Jessica can.
Yes, we do have some questions and
different ideas.
Shared ideas and things that they do as well. So one of the first questions is from Tiffany, and she said that you said you may lecture one day and then review or play games the second lecture, but what do you do if you don't get through all the material during the lecture? Are they responsible for learning the material themselves?
Yes, they are responsible for, I always provide them with a PowerPoint. So I do put that up. So they always have access to read through that. At the end of my PowerPoints, I always have like a terms to know. So I do have some highlighted stuff in there that I want to make sure they know. But yeah, they're responsible for it. And it was scary at first. I was like, oh my gosh, half the students don't read, half of them are going to go through the PowerPoints. But anecdotally, because I haven't sat down and actually like calculated and put in the numbers in a spreadsheet, the students do better and have done better as far as grade wise. And I have more students that meet that A and B criteria than when I just straight up strictly lectured. Because I think they were bored to death. I'll admit it, I know. But it's hard to not feel like you want to lecture.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned to you before that I have my master's in education, and it's elementary education.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm well aware of all the many different avenues you need to go for student engagement and engaged and really paying attention. Sam shared that she likes to play Taboo with parasites.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, like the words they can't use. I don't correctly, so please correct me if I'm wrong. So Toxocara canis.
Yes.
On top, and then the words they can't use are like round, dog, small intestine, things like that.
That's a great idea. I like that one. I'll have to think about how I can use that in A&P.
It's definitely interesting. I really like how people are adapting these games for different topic areas.
Yeah, I think in a lot of the game shows that are on television, we can really we can adapt them to just be fun. I have done Family Feud. That's a little bit more of a challenge, but I think you could make that work with maybe like pharmacology, because there's different, the categories or that type of thing. It's a little bit challenging because of the buzzer situation, and but I'm sure there's bells or buzzers out there that we can find for things like that.
Definitely.
For sure.
Dee Dee would like to know if you allow the students to look up the answers, perhaps for your Kahoot games. If not, what do you do if they say, I have no idea, and they just stop engaging?
I tell them to Google it. It depends on the situation. So I don't always allow them to look up the answers if we're doing like a test or a quiz or that type of stuff. That's a whole other topic, probably for a whole other session, where it's like, now that they're doing their tests online and their quizzes online, we're really worried about cheating and that type of stuff. I don't find that to be a huge problem in my classroom. I know that they do it, but if I think about it from our perspective, like we have Plums, we have the 5-minute veterinary consult, we have cytology books. So if we don't know something, we go to one of those books. As doctors, I think in LVTs now, we go to one of those books and we look it up. And so sometimes I'm okay with them doing that as long as they learned what they looked up. So I will tell them, yes, go ahead and Google it and let's learn more about it, but you better remember what you Googled. So, or sometimes I'll say, hey, you know what? You can't use Google, you can use your book. So if you need to look it up, the only place you can look is your book, or the only place you can look are the PowerPoint slides. So it depends on if I want to see if they did their reading or not, or if they're looking at the PowerPoints. And that's again where I will adjust like one of the games, and maybe I'll make all my clues from the reading, or all my clues will be from the PowerPoints. And that's because that's what I want them to look at. So it just depends on what I want them to look at. But you know what? I think we have to be okay with it because they're doing it anyways. And then we just have to figure out a way to make it work for us and be smarter than them. So I'm pretty straight up with my students. I tell them, like, if you're going to look at Facebook or Pinterest, like during class time and not engage, you're probably not going to pass, and sit in the back so you don't bug anybody else and they can't see your computer screen. And I catch them doing it, and then I figure out a way to kind of call them out on it. But like, hey, I saw you like, Googling this. So let's talk about it. Why, most of the time it's, the one that I can think of is I caught one of my students Googling a Dalmatian poodle mix or whatever. And so then we just kind of started talking about that and started talking about genetics and DNA. And so you just have to figure out a way to incorporate the fact that they're doing it, and then just make sure they learn it. I make sure they know right from the get-go that you can't do that on your boards. You're probably not going to be able to do that throughout the program. So if you're doing that in my A&P class as kind of a prerequisite to get into the program, if you're doing that in A&P, you might get in, but you're not going to stay in. So you just kind of have to tell them, like, that's where taking responsibility for your learning comes into play with that. So it's a good question. I think it's something we always struggle with.
Yeah, that makes sense, definitely. Jackie shared something that she's done before. So she said she makes sugar cookies and the students decorate them to look like blood cells. And she also had small groups of students in clinical pathology submit questions for a practical, set up their questions on the scopes, and then all the students took the practice practical. They seem to really enjoy those activities.
Yeah, those are great ideas. I love them. I love anything like super fun like that. Decorating or making their own blood cells. That's a super good idea. I totally could have them do that. I think those are fabulous ideas. And it's fun. It's fun for them because it's not all about I got to sit through a 3-hour lecture. I'm learning something. I'm engaging with my classmates and my college mates at the same time. So they're learning just tons of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. That reminds me of something I did during student teaching, actually. We had different tasks, maybe like 1 through 15, depending on the number of students, and different questions posted down the hallway. And the students would grab a partner and they'd go question by question, filling out their worksheet and answering and working together to do it. These were 8-year-olds, but I think the point still stands a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, okay. Marianne says for the candy prescription, use empty med bottles with the labels still on them and use craft beads for the pills. That way they're looking for the actual bottles and can count out the meds. And then you can use it over and over again. Just put a label stating not for consumption.
Yes, yeah, you can totally do that. I provide them with candy for it's a little treat or whatever, but I've also had years where I have a diabetic in the classroom, and so that's a good way to be conscientious of that. This particular group of class, I also have students that have peanut allergies, so that's a perfect workaround. That is just using some sort of bead. And then again, it's reusable, and it's also something that they can't cut. So I like that idea. If you want to, it's a good idea instead of the candy. And 2, yes, just make sure you mark it, not for consumption. So good idea. Yeah.
Definitely. So Tiffany asks if anyone has any ideas for games for distance learning. After you share your input, I just want to say that if anyone would like to share these on the Facebook page, then we can go through and collect them for the resources page on our website and share them on there for everyone as well.
Yeah. Again, I like Kahoots or Quizlet. Nearpod is online. It has some different options and things like that. The scavenger hunt thing, I'm going to try a little bit in radiology to have them do with their phones, like as far as taking pictures and then uploading the pictures. Kahoot is one where, again, you can send them a challenge on their phone, but they can also make their own Kahoot. So you could do something like having them make the Kahoot for the rest of the class, dividing them up that way, or having them make the Quizlet that you're going to distribute. So dividing them up in groups, and they could, pick a topic, and maybe, a couple different topics, I think is a good idea. We have some different, again, utilizing things in your learning management system, like Canvas has a section where we can put them into groups. So I've used that before, and it will randomize them. But yeah, a lot of the online ones I would probably use, and then just instead of you making the Kahoot, have them do it, pass around. But yeah, that's one of the challenges.
Yeah, I have noticed that having them do the work themselves instead of you giving it to them kind of makes it deeper. Like, I learned that way.
Yeah, they seem to remember it more, and they're really proud. Like the first time I had a student kind of raise her hand in anatomy and physiology, and she's like, I made a Kahoot, can we please play mine? And I was like, heck yeah, we'll play yours. Like, I was so excited that she was the first one that made it and like wanted to play hers in the classroom, and so she was very proud of it. So the more that they do that, I think they take ownership for ownership for their learning. We can do.
Yeah, that's great. So we just have a bunch of thanks for you for sharing all of your ideas.
Thank you for tuning in and coming. This is the first time I've done this, so I was very nervous, but hopefully like just got some ideas, and I got some good ideas from you guys, and I think that's what we're all about, is just a team. Like, we're all about creating good vet techs, because someday they're gonna be working on our pets. And so that's what I'm about, is creating a vet tech that I would be okay with working on my pet. And I think that we're all in that together. So I love getting ideas. And so thank you for listening to mine. And hopefully I gave you some good ideas going forward and stuff to try. Even if you don't like to bake, you can buy some cookies. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And thank you, Keren. Am I pronouncing your name?
Yes.
I noticed I pronounced it wrong before. Thank you for sharing. And like I said, if anyone wants to start a string on the Facebook page of distance activities or any kind of student engagement ideas, we can gather them and put them on the resources.
Yeah, and I can put up a couple of the links of like just the puzzle maker things that I use that they're free and easy to make puzzles and stuff with. So
awesome.
I can
Great.
Stick those in there too. So.
Okay, well, one last thank you to everyone for tuning in, and come back next week.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.